Okay, so we've got this, and because I know there are some people who can't make it this evening, but they are keen to hear your wonderful insight as to the opportunities that are available if you have a look and see what's out there. Okay, Teppy, am I right in thinking that you're probably going first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, that sounds good. And we'll leave some time at the end for a discussion after both of us as well, right? If people have got any questions as we go, they can just pop them in the chat, and either Ash or I will get to them as we're going, or we can answer them at the end.
Okay, that's absolutely super. Ladies and gents, I do need to emphasise as well that Teppy is being an absolute star this evening, because it's 7 o'clock for us on Wednesday, the 18th of November. But because Teppy is actually coming live from Australia, it's actually 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, the 19th of November. So, Teppy, thank you so much for
No, that's all right.
you've got up early and you're ready to go. So, without further ado, Teppy, off you go.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, my name's Matthew Teppy McLaughlin, and I know some people will be like, "Oh, what's Teppy?" It's a nickname that I got whilst I was at school, and it's one of those things that has stuck with me this whole time. So thanks for the introduction there. One of the things that I did notice, we're actually the class of 2013, I think, Mr. Maund.
Oh
So
goodness, I do apologise.
yeah, we're even older.
You're older than I thought.
Yeah, yeah. And we've been around for a long time. So I'll just head to the next slide if I can.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd talk about the journey of before and after study abroad, and just try and put it in a little bit of context for everybody. So first up on the timeline, the rather long stint at King Edward and Queen Mary School from 1998 to 2013. That really does make me feel old. I was there from 3 to 18, so it was a long time. I had a fantastic time at the school, and it was an amazing setup for the rest of what was going to happen. And as I was coming towards the end of school, I sat down with the careers advisor, as I'm sure others will do at school as you leave sixth form, and we had a look at, okay, what university would you like to apply to? Or maybe you don't want to go to university, maybe you want to do something else. And the first thing that I was interested in was doing something to do with sport and exercise science. And so I did all my applications, got all my things in, and I ended up at Loughborough University in the UK to do sport and exercise science. Probably from about minute one, after having lived by the coast in Livingston and all my life, and then moving to Loughborough, which, if people don't know where Loughborough is, it's the most landlocked place in England. So no coast at all. There is a quarry that people go swimming in. But I felt very isolated in Loughborough, and was yearning to go and do something. So I ended up looking at Loughborough University's options, and one of them was study abroad. It was something that I'd really not thought about up until actually coming across when I was doing my searches of what I could do during my degree. I was thinking about doing maybe a sports trip or a holiday, but when I found out about study abroad, it was a bit of an eye opener, and I thought, okay, that's a possibility. Because tied in with study abroad, I'd always had this idea of wanting to go and do a year in industry, and some of the parents on the call might remember year in industry was a more popular thing back in the day. It was something seen as an experience building thing, and you'd go off and do, it might be called an apprenticeship, or it might be called something similar. But they're certainly coming back and creeping back into universities. So I decided to do an internship following my study abroad, but those two were quite intrinsically linked, as I'll come on to. And then I finished my internship in 2016, went back and did the final year of my degree at Loughborough, and then moved back to Australia for a PhD, which I'm doing now, and that is in a related field. So I'm looking at physical activity and health of children. So it's been a nice journey. It did start with having a look and exploring options for study abroad, really, because I don't think I would be doing a PhD in Australia now if I hadn't have done a study abroad in Australia in 2015. So it did set that journey and that path up. I've just put one note at the bottom of the slide there, and I reworded this a few times because I know that not everybody knows what. Well, in fact, it's very, very rare that people know what they want to do leaving school when they've finished. If you do know what you want to do, I think that's absolutely fantastic. But if you don't know what you want to do exactly, then that's fine. But my advice would be to have a general idea of what you want to do. What are your interests? What are you good at? What are you already good at? Have you got analytical skills? Have you got good communication skills? And think about jobs and roles that suit the skills that you've already got and built up whilst you've been at school, because that's what you'll carry into your job anyway. So then the final thing is that although this journey is linear, there's multiple other things that come into this decision tree. You don't just go from study abroad to going, okay, I want to live in a different country and do something, completely different. There's other contributing factors along the way, people that you meet, holidays that you go on, and things you read. So I'll move to the next slide if I can. So for me, it was about mixing it up when I decided to go and study abroad. Like I say, I was getting a bit stuck in my ways in Loughborough. Loughborough was great, but I thought, you know what, it's time to have a bit of a change. So I applied to multiple different study abroads, and I was lucky enough to have some good guidance at Loughborough and some good encouragement to go and do that. But you do have to go and grab it yourself. I did search for those opportunities whilst I was at university. It wasn't kind of presented on a nice plate, and I think it could be something that you ask about after your first 6 months of being there. Okay, what are some of the opportunities to do study abroad or internships, or just having a look around? For me, because my timeline didn't include kind of a time away from study, I've now been in study for 25 years, which some people might be going, no, definitely not for me. So I haven't taken a gap from work or study in all of that time. I've taken gaps to do work and then come back to my PhD. But I saw study abroad as an alternative to going on a gap year or going on an extended holiday or something like that. And a number of others in my year at school and went on gap years, and I think that's also a really valuable experience because you do learn to live overseas, you do meet new people, but I think that the study abroad offers that unique thing, which is you can continue your study and keep the flow going and the momentum going. I know myself, if I stopped for a year or stopped for 6 months, it would possibly be too long to reflect for myself. So it was nice to have a change of scenery for 6 months in another country, continue my studies, make new friends and develop international contacts for job opportunities. And that's kind of how it was presented in the brochure. I was looking up the advertisement at Loughborough that I'd received via email for it. And when I was looking around, that's how things were framed. So it's a very positive thing. The universities like to do it, and they sent me and 3 others from Loughborough over to Australia for 6 months, 1 semester, and at the same time, Loughborough took in 4 Australian students, and so it was a direct swap. But there are programs, and I'm sure Ash will get onto some of the European ones, where you can just do a hop across and There's many different programs. One's called Erasmus, and just keeping your eye out for them. So why would you want to go on study abroad? And for me, it was to answer all of those things in that question. It was a mix, change of scenery, keeping up with my studies, because I didn't want to take a break. Really, I didn't want to do a gap year, although I did want a change of scenery. I certainly made new friends, and come on to that in a second. And I'll show you how some of the international contacts are made during my time on study abroad led to those future opportunities. So I'll have next slide if I can. First thing I learned, always apply sunscreen when you're in Australia. My goodness me, the first trip, you can see me there sat on top of the car, hat on. I actually don't think the photo does it justice. Still look fairly pale. I must have been early in the day, but later on in the day, very badly sunburned. So that was my first experience. But there was a number like that. Very practical and a very good learning experience. Opening a new bank in a different country, paying an electric bill in Australia rather than in the UK. All of those things that you learn to do when you go to university for the first time, I had to relearn to do in a different country. Seems a bit trivial maybe, but I definitely found that to be a learning experience. You learn about all the different tax systems. You get an appreciation for different cultures. It wasn't my first time overseas, but it was my first time living overseas, and I think that's where it can be slightly different. You can go on holidays with family, or go on trips with school or what have you, but you do find different things when you're living somewhere. And those things, like I was saying before, about even opening up a bank, it's something a little bit different. What did I learn? Well, I learned that there's definitely a world that I came from that was absolutely fantastic in Lytham St Anne's, and still in contact with everybody from Lytham St Anne's that I went to school with. But there's also this whole big world out there. Just in that photo, there's probably 7 or 8 different nationalities. At our residential college, there would have been 60, 70 different nationalities. People all across the world, all continents. So it really was a place where you learn off other people about, you learn practically off other people about different cultures and different ways of doing things that were really quite interesting. So I suppose all of that travel and meeting all of those people led to some further trips. And so the people pictured there, I've seen every single one of them subsequently. At some point, we've been on trips overseas, or we've been to New Year's Eves. We've caught up little various meetings. I think it's an ideal place to develop some international friends as well as your local friends. Nice to have that happening for you as well. And at the same time as doing that and visiting all these different places, and this is where I was saying it's probably not that linear. This is actually how I developed my PhD passion, which is around physical activity, schools, and also active travel. So walking, cycling, and wheelchairing. So seeing all of those different places around the world really helped me to think, oh, actually, this is something cool. So Matt, have next slide, please. So for me, once you've decided to go on study abroad, and this is something that you're thinking of doing, I suppose I've just got a few tips and tricks from my time there. So I always did want to do an internship as part of my degree, and this is a 1-year work placement where you're working in industry on something related to your degree, helps to build job prospects afterwards. And mine was intrinsically linked to my study abroad. So the contacts that I met on study abroad were the subsequent people that put me in touch with people in Melbourne, so on the other side of Australia, 4-hour flight away to do my internship. And so I think developing a network wherever you go is useful, and you might end up using it. And I certainly did. So yeah, it did take a lot of work to do that and a lot of networking. But I think I've left the pictures on the right-hand side up there just to show how fun it was. You can see there all those smiling faces, all in matching outfits, camping trips down the bottom. Ash will show me up when he comes on, because he's got much nicer photos than I have. But I've got group shots of people, because that for me, that was what it was about. We just so many good connections and so many good friends. And what is the next step bit? I'll put this bit in because I know we're talking today about, sharing our stories, and we're spinning yarns about what we've done on study abroad. But I think this process is continual. So I've just put in there, I have a mentoring meeting tonight with a professor from Denmark. A related thing is I've lost sight of where the chain reaction of study abroad has ended up with, but I'm sure it started with study abroad, my links to this person. But I'm having a mentoring meeting with them tonight, and they're passing on some of their thoughts and their experiences and their career stories. So I think these kind of things are really valuable, and everybody's different. Everybody's going to do things differently, but we can learn off each other. So always kind of having that in mind is good. Next slide, if we can. I'm getting there, and then I'll pass over to Ash. So my big thing is cherish your school friends. Like I say, I was there from 1998, so I do have many different friends. Some that moved on, some that stayed with the school right till the end. There's the first team, the first AKS cricket team, and the first AKS rugby team there, and also Lord Liget's Lads, which is a football group that formed in our year and still meet every year to play football games. We're obviously not meeting because of COVID at the minute, but I'm sure that will be back on the cards as soon as we've got over the hill with COVID. So I'd just emphasize that the people that you sit next to in the classroom, those in the years above and the years below you, make sure you try to keep in contact, make deliberate efforts to keep in contact with these people, because they're just as good as your friends that you meet on study abroad, if not better, because you've known them a lot longer. You know that they can give you advice. They can just be a shoulder to kind of talk to them about something. So certainly keep up with your school friends. And I've just got one final message in my summary on the next slide.
Okay, I do sort of feel like I need to just give almost like a parental guidance for this next slide, because obviously we're not near the watershed yet, but there you go.
Oh, wow. I did deliberately censor for you.
Thank you.
But this was this photo is taken in a trip about 5 hours north of where we were doing our study abroad. So at that particular point in time, we weren't doing a lot of study abroad, and we were doing a lot of swimming about in lakes and waterfalls. But for me, my take home, if this sounds like something you want to do, you really do have to jump in and do it yourself, because I don't think many people are going to be around you to push you in and do it. So that would be my key take home. You go and take it on yourself. I'm sure Ash's take homes are going to be equally as profound as that. Try to think of something that, but that's my main summary really. Is just throw yourself in. So I might hand over to Ash if I can.
Right, brilliant. Thanks, Teppy. If anybody has any questions that they're already thinking of that they do want to put into the meeting chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, let me find Mr. Gregson's presentation, and we'll put that up now. Ash, welcome. Hope you're well.
Hello, guys. How are you? Yeah, very well, thank you. Not the early start that Tep's got. It's normal time for me.
No, you're on our time today, so that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot for inviting us on, and I guess I'll be sharing a bit of a different perspective than Tep, but a lot of the themes and words you'll hear, like culture and experience, and throwing yourself in there will apply because it's the same premise, just a different location. So I'm going to have the next slide. I'll just give you a bit of a background of what I've done education-wise, what I'm doing, what I've done in the world of work, and what I'm hoping to do. So I wasn't a 1998 like Tep. I joined in 2009 through to 13. And I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do after I finished sixth form. I remember sitting down with Mr. Maund and doing a cover letter application to do politics and international relations. And that was something that I was never going to do. So I ended up sacking that off. And I had one choice through clearing, I guess you'd call it, to go through. So I picked Northumbria to do international business management. And the prime reason for that is because it was a 4-year program and I had the opportunity to go abroad. That's all it was. I wanted the opportunity. I didn't know any more than that. I just wanted the option to go and see something different, go and meet different people for a year. So I did my 2 years at Newcastle and I went across to Oslo in Norway and studied at a private business school where I spent a year before coming back to finish off my bachelor's, where I did a project for a national charity instead of doing the typical dissertation. So I've had a much more varied route than Tep would or many people would in that respect. So I left Newcastle and then got straight into the world of work. So I moved down to Oxford, did an internship for a medium-sized firm that worked in sustainability. They wanted new ideas of doing things, greener ways of doing things, new and fancier products. And then from there, I moved up to York and worked in the world of auditing, which is, if anyone's thinking about it, I would think twice. It's not particularly interesting, but it was a good experience nonetheless, a new place to live, new people to meet. And then I moved on again, moved down to Bristol, where I worked for Baker Hughes, who are a global oil and gas organization. So I did a couple of different roles at a couple of different sites, had a fantastic time, got into the corporate world, but decided that wasn't for me again. So I stayed within Bristol, moved to an organization called Turner & Townsend. So I work in construction consultancy now, where I've been for about 18 months. And my organization, they sponsor a master's degree for me. So I'm 1 year into a quantity surveying degree. So I've definitely had a spread of different industries. I mean, I've lived in 4 or 5 different places. A lot more chaotic route than someone like Tep, who had a sort of a clear idea. I just knew business. I wanted the chance to go abroad, and I ran with it. And I'm almost at sort of a bridge that I suppose a lot of you guys will be adding. That I'm just about to write a dissertation, so I'm thinking about what's the next step for me. What does my future look like? What do I want to go into? Where do I want to be? What do I want to specialize in? All these different things that are continually going around in your head, because you're always learning. And that's the thing I'd stress, along with what Tep was saying, is I didn't really have an idea what I wanted to do when I was in the position in 2013. And it's not to stress about that, because you got so many doors open and so many different opportunities, and you'll be continually learning. And if you get into something that doesn't work out, to stop it, that's not a bad thing. You're at the sort of stage in life where you can delve into several different aspects, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not the end of the world. There's always something to go into. So I just stress that, in that that there's so many doors, and I just encourage just looking at all of them, really, and not diving in. So if I could have the next slide there, please, and I just give a bit of a background then into where I went. So this was the BI Norwegian Business School in Oslo, where I spent my year. So I mean, that was my first image of where I was going to be spending the year. So I mean, I was completely gobsmacked. I mean, it's comfortably the most impressive building I've ever been in. It's the most impressive campus I've ever been in. It's the most professionally set up campus higher education that I've seen. It was absolutely impeccable. So it was a private business school. Sorry, there was about 10,000 people. So it's not like a typical university you'll have here, like a Loughborough or a Northumbria, where you might have 30 or 40,000 people. It's very specialist. It is very niche, and that's why I've just included the courses I've undertaken. Because if you look at doing some of those at bachelor level, you won't have the opportunity to. So I went there, and I look at project management. I mean, that is, if anyone has that interest, I mean, that's something now that I do in some sort of training for work. I mean, what I was doing there was so many years ahead of what I could do in the UK. It gave you a new option. So I studied a plethora of courses that I wouldn't have the chance to do at my institution in the UK. And I learned, a lot of things that, I just wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. I did a course in Norwegian culture, and it was a little bit different for me than TEP. I went into a country that their first language isn't English. I mean, they speak better English than myself and TEP do probably, but you're going into an environment where, you've got to do the small things. You've got to register with the bank, you've got to register with the police, but you're going into somewhere where, on the metro, the instructions aren't in English, the signs aren't in English. The people that you get assigned to, are Norwegian or Swedish or Finnish. So you've got that barrier to get over. And that was certainly one of the most exciting things about it is like Tep said, you're going to meet people from all over the world. And when I went, there was 400 international students. So there was a very large cohort that came from all over the world, from all corners of the world. And that it was so well run. We were stepping into a community that was set up for us. They had events that were tailored to what we wanted to do. They kept us together. They segmented us into little groups, etc., etc. And you never really had the feeling that you were away from home, because you were stepping into, whether it be a dinner or whether it be a sporting event or whether it be a guest lecture or whether it be a day of activities. You're constantly on the go. So you're just reacting around you. You're getting yourself involved into all these different things where you're going to meet people from all over and learn so many things. And I mean, like I was saying, I wanted that picture there because that was my first impression. And when I got there, that almost shaped the year. I mean, where this picture's taken from, you step out of the metro here, and that's the first thing you see. I mean, you look at it in Google, you look at what you see, and when I got there, I remember thinking, wow, this is serious. And I treated it with that sort of maturity that it required for me to get the most out of it. So we had classes that started at 8. I was there at 8. I was chucking myself in. I volunteered at several different, sort of sporting groups they had or business groups they had, just to get myself involved and take out the most I could, because what I had here with it being a private business school and a very fortunate place to be is I wasn't going to get these opportunities back at Northumbria. And I knew this, so I disciplined myself to get the most out of it whilst I was there. And it's really important that if it is something you want to do, you take that mindset with you about, it is a great opportunity you've got. When I went, I think there was about 5% of people had the opportunity to study abroad. So you're going to be in a very niche band. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I mean, I'm sure you'll hear that many, many times when people talk about study abroad, the opportunity to go away. It is very unique. And I specifically wanted to go to Scandinavia, and like TEP, I made it happen. I had to, pester people. I had to get my application through, but I wanted to go and I made it happen. And it really was as simple as that. So I could have the next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit more about experiences, and I've just got pictures here, and that's all I wanted to do really. And it's not necessarily about the people that I met. That'll come later. It's about what you'll see and what you've got the opportunity to do. So this was about a 4 or 5 day trip I went on with about 10 others, all from places all over the world. There was Australians, there was Swedes, there was Dutch, there was Germans. It was brilliant. And we got a train from Oslo to Bergen, which is about 7 hours. It's the full breadth of Norway. So you're going through, I mean, it's the most spectacular scenery you'll ever see. You've got sweeping mountains, huge lakes. And all the time you're creating these bonds, these connections, like Tep's mentioned. You'll never know when, you might bump into so-and-so again, or, what may happen. And the picture on the right here was a boat we had to take to get to start the hike. So that was taken at about 5 o'clock in the morning in the summer. So the beautiful thing about Norway, or the worst in some cases, is you get 20 hours daylight in the summer, but you get 20 hours daylight in the winter. And I had temperatures that range from 30 down to -20. I mean, I got everything I wanted. It was absolutely fantastic. And what the hike I did here was a 22-kilometer round trip. So it took us the best part of about 11 hours. And we decided at the end of it, you know what, we're going to stick a tent up here. Why not? We're here now. You'll look back at this. I've got this picture framed on my wall. I've got it on mugs. I've got it everywhere. It's something, whenever I see it, it draws you back to that experience. And it's things like that you don't necessarily think of at the time that'll stick with you. I mean, I get reminded of this every year on its anniversary, and it's still, you know, we're still having the same conversation with the guys that we went with about how good it was and what an experience it was. But what I say is, in terms of what I said about almost like the application of when you get there, my mindset I took with me is whatever it was, I was going to say yes, whether it be an 11-kilometer hike, whether it was going to be a swim in a freezing lake in October, whether it was going to be whatever, it was yes. I wanted to say yes to everything, and I wanted to do everything. And I wanted to come home and said, well, bloody hell, you know, I stuck myself in everything there, and look what I've got to show for it. And it's shaped me now, and it's something I've learned about probably over the last couple of years. These little things that I did when I was in Oslo, I mean, getting on a plane and going and living abroad for the first time, like Tep was saying, it's daunting. I mean, I cried like a baby at departures. You're putting yourself so far out your comfort zone. You don't know what's going to happen. I had a couple of travel bags and a sleeping bag, and that was me done. I'm off to Norway for a year. And you don't think about it. And all I did was chuck myself in any scenario I could get in and enjoy it. And that's why I just wanted to just have one word there, experience, just a couple of shots, because I'm sure you guys will be, you know, embarking on trips that are far greater than what myself and Tep have done here. And you'll be thinking about those in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. And it really is all about the experience. It's about saying yes. And it's about looking back at this and thinking, you know, crikey, I'm glad that happened, or whatever it may be. And on the next slide I've got here is the connections, and it's more the people. And I just wanted to put the flags up here. So these were the sort of group that I got close to when I first went to Norway. So you can see there we got, you know, a couple of Germans, we got a handful of Dutch, Australians, Norwegians, a couple of Canadians. And you wouldn't get that opportunity, you know, playing it safe, I'd almost say. I mean, it's a great chance to put yourself out there. And like Tep's saying, you know, he's got meetings with professors, and, you know, you're hooking up with these people all over the world. I mean, I've met up with probably about half of this group since, on several occasions. You know, a couple of them live in London now. And when I was in a spot where I was in between jobs, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the Australian chap there at the back, he puts on LinkedIn about a job position that's going in Amsterdam. So I get in touch, you know, I like the sound of it. I go over to Amsterdam, spend a couple of days, you know, reliving the glory days in Norway, interviewed with the firm. But, you know, on my behalf, I decided it wasn't for me. But that was an opportunity that I had from being in study abroad, but taking advantage of study abroad. So you're going to have little things like that, you know, might be very, you know, insignificant at the time. But, you know, 4 years down the line, that opened a door for me. That, you know, I could be living in Holland now, working in something in a completely new field. It's those little things that you don't think about at the time. You know, in 5 years down the line, they're going to present themselves with something, and it might be something brilliant. It might be a new journey. It might be a new chapter. And that's why that connection's there, because it's about getting yourself out there. I met people from countries I didn't know even exist. I couldn't point to them on a map. And you're putting yourself in a room, you're learning about, you know, what makes them tick, what are they interested in? And it's absolutely phenomenal. And it's something, you know, when I got back to Northumbria, and, you know, you got a couple of blokes from Yorkshire and a guy from Northern Ireland, you don't have that same balance. But it's all about what you want to make of it. And that's all I would encourage with the connections. Just echoing what Tep has said, just put yourself out there. You know, if it's not something for you, you can hop on a plane, you can come home. It really is just something that at the age that you can embark on it, it's absolutely invaluable. And that's really just what I want to drive home in that connection slide. And then on the next slide, it's maybe something a little bit more that I have thought about now, and it's what studying abroad gave me in hindsight. So what did it do for me, and what did my experience, what did my year give me in effect? So looking back now, it shaped what I'm interested in. It shaped what I appreciate. So I've included this image on the right. So this is something called the Barcode Project, which was constructed whilst I was there and a couple of years before. And it's called the Barcode because, as you can see, the buildings go black, white, black, white, black, white, like a barcode. And that was where I really got the appreciation for the built environment architecture, for almost niceties. For, you know, I came away from Norway and thought, why doesn't England look like this? Why isn't England nice? Why don't we have, you know, all these glorious buildings, all these great little communities? And now I work in the built environment. So I work within real estate. So I look more from a rail property side. So we might look at enhancing railway stations or implementing new multi-stories, new cycle hubs, etc. But what I'm starting to get into is you know, these mixed-use facilities of, you know, why can't we have the shared space that looks brilliant, you know, on the eye, but actually serves a great purpose? You know, how are we thinking about bringing people together? Because what Norway gave me was culture, and you know, culture it gets branded about a lot, and people find it hard to define culture. And when I went to Norway, the one thing you'll get and you'll see if anyone ever gets the chance is the emphasis on work-life balance that you'll see in places like Norway and across Scandinavia. The discipline they've got when they go to work and the enjoyment they have is fantastic. But, you know, when work ends and, you know, you go home, that time's got to be as important as well. And that balance was something that I saw firsthand and absolutely appreciated. I thought it was probably one of the best things, you know, that I took away from my time. And with that, I then went into the world of work, and I've gone in and helped out with whether it be sort of well-being groups or health ahead type groups, and always shared what I learned from Norway and what the importance of having a work-life balance gives people. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, this looks good, doesn't it? But now when I think about it, and you get into the world of work yourself, and you see, you know, how we operate maybe in the UK, you think about these things, and you think, well, that was something that my year abroad gave me. That's something that Norway gave me. That's something that, you know, my Norwegian friends gave me, and I've taken that back with me. And that's, you know, a core part of what I believe in. It's a core part of, you know, whenever I go to work or whenever I've changed jobs, I've taken that with me as well. And the bottom line there is around, again, the values of how progressive a nation it is. So, I mean, when I went there, you would have, I mean, I was there 2015, 2016. I would say, you know, every 3 out of 10 cars would be a Tesla. They were on a real green sweep before, you know, we try and piggyback onto it. They're at the forefront of really doing different things, whether it be, you know, green cars and banning cars from a city centre, making it pedestrianised, you know, looking at different types of technology, whether it be wind or solar, things that are progressive. You know, I've taken that with me, and that's something that I'm going to be writing a dissertation on. And I think back now, and I got that from Norway, from seeing that firsthand, from seeing the Teslas, from seeing the passion that they've got for, you know, making a change. And that's something that I've taken, and I'm looking at running forward with. I'm looking, you know, okay, how's this dissertation gonna shape me? What does next year look like if I want to go into this field? You know, who do I need to be speaking to? Who do I need to be, you know, talking with? And it's these things that only with hindsight do you think about. And it's, you know, putting this deck together for you guys today, where, you know, I've learned about some of these things, about I am where I am today because of what, you know, that experience gave me. Not necessarily, you know, it sped it up and encouraged it. But when I look back to the job I'm in, what I want to do, it all links to what I learned when I was over there, what I saw firsthand, how I saw people interact, how I saw people appreciate what they do. And that's what it gave me. And, you know, if anyone does get the chance to get across to Scandinavia and Europe, you know, I hope that, or wherever it be, Australia, you know, you take these little points away and you just store them, because in a couple of years' time, there'll be a penny drop moment where you think of them, and it'll bring you back to that point, and you'll think, well, I'm glad I went on study abroad, because look at what it's given me today. And it's really, it really has molded sort of what I'm about today, and sort of what I stand for. And it maybe is a little bit deep, but it really does come back to these little events that you do in life that sort of shape what we are. So I've just got on the next slide then a few takeaways like Tep had, and you'll see again key points, you know, things that you've probably heard numerous times throughout here, and myself and Tep speak. It's about putting yourself out there. You know, you'll have a very good opportunity that not many people have to do. You know, go over there or wherever it may be, or whatever the field is you've got an interest in, but apply yourself, test yourself. You've got the opportunity, take it with both hands. Don't waste the years when you go to uni just doing it because you feel like you've got to. Think about, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Maybe, what do you want to be as a person, or whatever it may be, whatever it makes you tick. Just learn about what makes you tick and start to think about it. Start to plot, okay, 5 years, all right, maybe I'd like to see myself doing this. Whatever it may be, think about that and take the ownership, because Tet wouldn't have been in the position he would have been in without forcing it himself. And I wouldn't have got to Norway without forcing it. I wouldn't have got into, the jobs I've got without, putting yourself out there and applying yourself, taking that ownership, taking the step, right, here's what I want to achieve, here's what I want to do, and running with it. And I just want to sort of finish on what I spoke about a couple of slides ago. And in all of the experience that I've got now, that I took through education, that I took through employment, is I've got to it because I said yes. And I went to Norway, and everything I did was about saying yes. And everything about that now is about saying yes. It's about thinking, well, what if I read this? What's this going to give me? What am I, it's about continually learning. And you guys will have all this to come, but I would just encourage about applying yourself at an early stage.
Oh, Ash, are you still there? You've just frozen out a second there. We'll just see. I know, obviously, Ash was coming to the end there anyway. Is there any questions that you do have, guys? Please feel free to drop them into the meeting chat, and we'll see. Ash is still looking very intense on that screen. You might.
That's his thinking face.
It is, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
intense thinking face. But yeah, if you've got any questions that you would like to add, then feel free. If you don't, if they've answered and inspired you in everything that you need to do. Oh, there he is. He's
Sorry,
back.
I think my Wi-Fi packed in or something then.
No, it's fine. It was fine. Was there any last little snippets that you just wanted to say there?
No, I was just looking at just driving home, just that application, and just saying, yes, you've got a great opportunity to do all these wonderful things. And the worst thing you'd want to do is think, oh, what if I said yes to that?
Yeah.
And that's all it really is about at this stage.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thanks, gents. Ben's just put down, I think this is more obviously for you, Ash, rather than for Tepi. Before you went to Norway, could you speak any Norwegian?
I can't speak a word of Norwegian, no. I mean, I did the course that was Norwegian culture, and I got sort of an introduction, but the courses I went on there were all taught in English, and their level of English was absolutely impeccable. I know from a lot of my cohort at uni that went to Europe, they were all taught in English as well. You'll have people from all over the world. It's something that I would encourage. I look back and think I wish I did do it a bit more and take that home with me, but yeah, no, not a word of it.
No, and that's fine. And I think that's the exciting thing is, and I think the special thing of having the both of you on this evening as well is that you could easily fall into that category of going, Australia's in a sense a safe bet because you know that they speak English, but then the idea then of actually going somewhere maybe a bit further afield where you do not necessarily assume that English is first, second or third language. There is that, I suppose, that little fear factor, but I think you've proven there perfectly, Ash, that with a bit of research, what's out there, and the most important thing is to really just go for it. And I think all of us in the with the current lockdowns and the current restrictions that we have, to sort of think that we do need to think about the sunny uplands of the future, and that we will have an opportunity to go travelling again. And I think from what the two of you have said as well, in terms of how university can actually be the perfect springboard for that, as Tepi sort of mentioned previously as well, the Erasmus scheme in Europe, I mean, that's still going at the moment, regardless of what's actually going to end up happening with Brexit. We still are in the Erasmus scheme at this moment in time, and doing it through university, where they are pretty much making the process straightforward and simplistic for you, but at the same time, you've got that safety net because you're doing it through a UK university, it does mean that there isn't really anything stopping you apart from maybe, you know, sort of any initial fears or doubts that you may have, and the most important thing is to shake it off. As I've said to some of my students in the past, in a very sort of maudling retrospective way, one of the regrets that I had when I was at uni was in the first year. Some of the second year students came round and said that there was the opportunity to study abroad in America for a year, and I, in the space of 2 seconds, I sort of, in the first second I thought, yeah, that would be really cool, and then in the second I just dismissed it and went, it's just not something I would be able to do. And I do wish that I'd sort of taken, you know, sort of in a sense your mindset with me at that time. So students, ladies and gents, whenever you get the opportunity, just really seize the day is the most important thing. Both Ash and Tepi are part of our alumni careers program. So what that means is that for our sixth form students, they've got access to a whole suite of contacts that they can ask, that they can get in touch with, and they can ask various questions, and they can ask for support as well. And obviously the fact that both gents are here this evening means and shows that they're utterly keen to help out. Tepi's nice reminiscing of the photos as well from KUQMS was perfect. So that just sort of shows as well sort of how, you know, I suppose you still feel linked to school as well, which is superb, and that's why you're helping out. So on behalf of everybody, gentlemen, thank you so much. Ash, enjoy the rest of the evening. Tepi, have a good day.
Thank you.
And I hope that the meeting with the Denmark professor goes well later.
Yes. Hopefully I can learn some tips and tricks.
Right, that's great. Okay, ladies and gents, all the very best. Have a good night, and we'll speak to each other soon. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.